Hello everyone, it's Stephanie, your CSA coach, and it is week 21A of our CSA shares. So we have, after this week, 3 more weeks to our season. If you're a B week, you'll have next week and then the last week, and if you're an A week, you will have 1 more additional week after this pickup this week. Couple of quick announcements. Make sure you're still picking up your shares. There's lots of really good fall produce in our shares each week. Lots of fun stuff, so make sure you're not forgetting to still go. First week of November is our last pickup. Also, S'mores Social this Saturday at the farm from 5 to 7 p.m. There'll be some fun stuff for the kids, as well as s'mores, and it's just bring your own beverage of choice. And then early bird registration, stay tuned for Friday. There'll be an email coming out on Friday giving you details, but at the end of October, our early bird registration will open and you can register for next year or for next season. So stay tuned for more information on that. All right, jumping right into this week's share, a lot of repeat items and a lot of items we've seen before, and then a couple of new items. So we have red onions. They're cured. They get stored in a cool, dry place. They can be eaten raw. They can be cooked. They can be sauteed. They can be grilled. They can be roasted. So many fun things that you can do with onions. I like to use onions and garlic to flavor just about everything. So we also got 2 cloves of garlic stored in a cool, dry place. It is cured. You can use this raw. You can use it in salad dressings. You can use it in sauces. You can use it to season. You can actually turn both our onions and our garlic into onion powder and garlic powder, and there is information on how to do that on the blog. I'm not sure if it was last year or the previous year that I did a whole write-up on that, but it makes the most delicious onion and garlic powder, but it is not labor intensive, I wouldn't say, but time. It takes a lot of time to dehydrate and then grind up the onion and garlic, but that's an option as well for preservation. You can also freeze either of them. So I've seen you can just take the garlic and remove it from the papery outer membranes and then throw it in the freezer. You can remove this and any of our outside, so let me finish. You can remove the outside papery layers of the onion and do the same thing, chop it up and throw it in a freezer bag. All of our outside, so like the membranes of the garlic, the membranes of the cured papery thin layers of the onion, rinse them off and save them. Throw them in your veggie bags, your veggie freezer bags, and they can help flavor your broth. So they aren't necessarily trash. It's just not something that we use very often. We tend to compost it or throw it in the trash, but it does have flavor and nutrition in it, so you can add it to those veggie scrap bags. So garlic and onion, 2 of our items for this week. We have russet potatoes. We got a quart of russet potatoes. Potatoes are pretty easy to use. These are gonna get stored in a cool, dry place, but please keep them away from our onions and our garlic. So these tend to give off moisture, and we don't wanna put them in the same bin as onions and garlic because it'll make the onions and garlic go bad. Potatoes, they can be baked, they can be roasted. You can do mashed potatoes. You can do, let's see what's on the blog. There's a potato crusted quiche. There's mashed potato cakes, I think I called them. You can just, a lot of the time just kind of chop them up, season them, and I do a big sheet of roasted potatoes as a side for dinner or as a breakfast side. Potatoes might be showcased in one of the next few recipes. I'm working on a few different ideas, so I don't know what the next few weeks will entail, but one of the ideas I have does involve potatoes, but cool, dry place for those guys. We got 2 little koginut squashes. These get stored in a cool, dry place. They do not need to be peeled. You can eat the peel. They have these nice little ridges, so if you cut them in half, take off the stem, remove the seeds, and then slice them into rings or into little slivers, then they're easy to roast. These are great roasted and then put on top of salad. You can roast them and then puree them and use them in baked goods. So there are a bunch of recipes on the blog, and a lot of this, I can't remember what different squashes I've used in the past, but I know I have like a squash pancake, or maybe it was a waffle. It was something breakfasty. There's a lot of baked goods that use pumpkin. You can interchange your squashes for those. So you can use pumpkin, but you can also use coconut squash. You can use butterkin squash. It's just gonna slightly change the flavor. If you're not gonna use these, then go ahead and chop them up, roast them, puree them, and freeze it. And then you'll have it preserved and can use it whenever you want. You can also make soups out of these, so it makes a good autumn soup. So cool, dry place for those. We have fennel. Fennel gets stored in a plastic bag in the fridge. Fennel has a licoricey taste. You can eat it raw. I like to, if it's raw, I like it sliced really, really thin. So thinly sliced, thrown on top of a salad. Probably my favorite way to eat fennel is to slice the bulb, throw it on a sheet pan, season it, and then roast it to almost get a caramelization on it. And then it kind of changes the flavor and gives it so much depth. Fennel is really good for your digestive system. So you can even just take one of cut off one of the stems and kind of chew on it, and it will help digestion in general. So fennel. There's a fennel tea on the blog. I know we've posted just roasted fennel. You can also grill fennel. Fennel and cranberries go really well. So you could do like a fennel-y cranberry salad. We received dill. So dill preserves really well. If you're not going to preserve it, basically what you're going to do to store it is take a glass of water, put it right in the water, and then store it in the fridge. And that's how it likes to be. And then just pull out your strands or your stems and use it. Dill goes really well with eggs. You could do like a dill deviled egg. You could do a dill dip. So I know there's a dill dip, a fresh dill dip on the blog. You can also preserve dill. So it dehydrates really well, and it also freezes really, really well. And then you'll have it longer term. So we're getting into the last few weeks of our CSA shares. So I always like to do as much preservation now, because I like to have some of the produce we've had for these 24 weeks throughout the rest of the year. So I do try to preserve a little bit, and I usually freeze more than I do can. But dill does dehydrate really well, so that's an option as well. Okay, so we have broccoli raab. Broccoli raab was also in our shares last week. This is a leafy variety, so we won't really see the big florets on this broccoli raab. Can be eaten raw, can be sauteed. I prefer it sauteed. You can blanch it in salt water to kind of take some of that bitterness out. My husband loves broccoli raab as just a side. So sauteed with a little bit of onion, a little bit of garlic, and some olive oil, and you have a great side. This gets stored in a Ziploc bag or in a Debbie Meyer green bag, in a plastic bag in the fridge. Spinach. Spinach is probably one of the first things you're gonna wanna use this week. It's gorgeous. It just needs to be rinsed off, and I tend to serve spinach raw. It's probably, I kept talking about how much I love the farm arugula. I love spinach as well from the farm. It's just got so much nutritional value to it, and it's phenomenal, just lightly dressed and served just the way it is. You can cook it. You can cook it and freeze it. You can add it to smoothies. Spinach, you can kind of saute and serve it with eggs as a breakfast. You can put it in omelets. You can put it in quiches. So you could do a potato crusted quiche if you get that off of the blog, and then add a little sauteed spinach to that as well. So lots of ideas there, but my favorite is just the way it is, just cleaned up, chopped up, and served as a raw salad. So that gets stored in a plastic bag in the fridge, and that's probably the first item you're gonna wanna use this week. We received red beets again. So first thing you wanna do with your beets is chop off the bottoms, put them in a Ziploc bag, and then the tops go in a separate Ziploc bag. The bottom bulbs can be used raw or cooked. They can be roasted, they can be boiled, they can be pickled. There's definitely a bunch of recipes on the blog. I know I have pickled beets 2 ways. I've got some some beet slaws on there. As far as the tops, sauteed just like any of our other greens. If you're not going to use them, throw them in your veggie scrap bag and use them to flavor your veggie broth. So don't throw them away. You can also make green cubes out of them. So basically all of our greens, kale, Swiss chard, collards, turnip greens, beet greens, they can all be used interchangeably. Your flavor is just going to change up a little bit. So we can saute them, we can eat them raw. You can actually, excuse me, you can juice these. So if you have a juicer, you can juice the bottoms, but you can also juice the tops as well. So stored in a Ziploc bag, or these, because they're so big, especially the greens, are going to get stored in a Debbie Meyer green bag in my refrigerator. And then the bulbs get stored in a Ziploc bag. I really like beets pickled, which is a way to preserve them. But I also like them roasted. We have turnips, same basic idea as beets. We're gonna chop off the tops and put them in one bag, preserve them. You can eat them raw, you can saute them, you can make green cubes out of them and throw them in smoothies. Our bottoms. I love turnips roasted. You can chop them up and serve them raw. I prefer them thinly sliced on top of a salad, even kind of put into like matchsticks on top of a salad. These might be showcased in one of the next couple recipes. Again, I have some bunch of different ideas up in my head that I need to kind of see what works out. You can definitely pickle these. You can saute them, you can roast them, you can grill them. So turnips. And last but not least is our Napa cabbage, which is huge this week. This gets stored in a Debbie Meyer green bag or a plastic bag in the fridge. It will last quite a while, preferably left whole and unwashed. And then if you use it and use up the whole thing, great. If you don't use up the whole thing and there's still some left, like if you kind of take off the outside leaves and use those, and then it will last quite a while. Can be served raw. It's really good and really mild. You can definitely cook it. You can saute it. You can do like a stir fry, or you can do a Napa cabbage salad. So rather than using lettuce, you can use the Napa cabbage as your base. You can add a protein, keep it super simple and do Napa cabbage with a protein on top and a light dressing, and there's your meal. I usually like to add like a little bit of crunch, but you can turn it into a dish all of its own if you add a protein on it. So Napa cabbage, again, this is one that I'm going to play around with, so there may be a recipe coming up for Napa cabbage, but that gets stored in the fridge. So lots of greens this week. Lots of things that we can potentially last a little while. Focus on what you have left from last week. Share any recipes you stumble upon or love to use for these ingredients. And stay tuned on Thursday for the recipe post and on Friday for an email regarding our early bird registration. Any questions, tag me on the Facebook group, and I will see you all again next week. Remember that there's the Sunset S'mores Social. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. On Saturday from 5 to 7 p.m. So anyone that's available, stop by the farm at that time. Thanks.